Hi guys, welcome to my channel. All of you guys are new here, so if you could support me by liking, sharing, subscribing, you know, all that good stuff that people do on YouTube. So, yeah. So today I was planning on doing a case, more of a conspiracy about fairies. And then I came across this case that I didn't know about, maybe you didn't know about either. But if you haven't, her name was Bridget Clearly and her husband was Michael Clearly. And even today in the town of Tipperary, she has not been forgotten. She has not been forgotten. The children have nursery rhymes that help remember her by, I guess. And one of them goes, "Are you a witch or are you a fairy? Or are you just the wife of Michael Clearly?" I hope you enjoy it, and if you don't, that's okay too. Let's go. All right, so in Ireland, at the end of the 18th century, Bridget Clearly was married to Michael Clearly. Her body was found under clay and thorn bushes. Who killed her? The husband, because he thought she was a fairy. But you know, back then people also used to think that, witches were, you know, a thing if you cooked a loaf of bread. So, with that being said, Bridget Clearly was 26 years old. They were considered to be more prosperous than their neighbors. They had more money than their neighbors. Bridget worked herself as a egg seller, and a seamstress. And Michael worked with wood. It was called a cooper, I believe. And he worked with any types, he built stuff with wood, like one does with wood. So Bridget grew up with the finer of things. She could afford fancy dresses, fancy hats, you know, fancy shoes, all of the stuff that goes along with having a certain amount of money. So they were considered to be a part of an emerging class. They lived in a rural society. And they grew up as children knowing about the fairies and learning about the fairies. And basically, the children would say things like bless them if any of the fairies were mentioned. If anything went wrong, however, if the milk went sour, if, you know, there were bad crops, if you lost a shoe or a sock, it was the fairies. Now, I always personally blame that on my washing machine, but to them it was the fairies. So Bridget grew up and she was taught and learned about the exact same things. And she was extremely fascinated with anything little people related. Bridget, she would often go places in the town that were known as fairy forts. And typically you would want to stay away from those because it could be linked to causing any type of bad luck if you disturb the fairies' homes, so to say. So one day on March 4th, 84, she was delivering eggs to her dad's cousin, Jack Dunn. So she was delivering eggs like she does, and she was walking up to Jack Dunn's house. She knocks on the door. I guess he's not home. But Mr. Jack, he lived next to one of these so-called fairy forts. So Bridget decided, well, hey, since he's not answering the door, I'm just gonna go and hang out with the fairies, like she usually did. So she got there, she stayed for a while. I don't know if she ended up seeing any fairies or talking to any fairies. That was unclear, but she did stay for a while, and then after a while, it was cold, it was snowing, so she decided, hey, it's time to go home. I don't want to sit out here anymore, type of thing. So she gets home and she sits next to the fire. It was about a 2-3 mile walk, by the way. So she sits next to the fire, try to warm up, right? Like one would do. Get on your nice cozy blanket, sit by the fire. I don't personally have a fireplace, but if I did, that's exactly where I would go if I was cold. So she is sitting next to the fire trying to warm up, but she was unable to. So her husband gets home and he's like, what's going on? And she's like, I can't seem to warm up. I can't seem to warm up. So she's like, you know what? F this, I'm gonna go lay down in bed and try to warm up underneath my covers. So she does just that, and the next morning she wakes up and she has a pounding headache. You know, that type of headache that you get, and you know, it just freaking hurts. And there's nothing really that you can do about it, right? Take some Advil, but back then there was nothing really that you could do. So anyways, she has a pounding headache and she tells her husband, look, dude, I have a pounding headache. So I forgot to mention, Patrick Boyland, which was Bridget's dad, was Bridget's dad. He also lived in the house with them, their little cottage. So Bridget's dad, Patrick, he said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and walk 3-4 miles to see if the doctor can help us, type thing. Don't worry, this gets better. It's just how I've done it for so many years, so, you know. So anyway, so he walks to get the doctor, but the doctor's like, you know what, dude, I'm busy. I can't get there until Thursday or Wednesday. And he's like, listen, that's not gonna work, dude. She's super sick. I need you to get down here ASAP. He's like, nah, I can't. I got other people to see, other places to go, type of thing. So Michael does try to reach out to the doctor and is like, hey dude, like my wife's really sick. She's getting worse. I don't know what to do at this point. Doctor still is like, can't come just yet, so to say. So finally, when the doctor does show up, he diagnoses her with nervous excitement and a slight case of bronchitis. So you would think that this would make, you know, her dad and husband a little bit on the relieved side, but no. Michael quote says, that is too fine to be my wife, and that she is 2 inches taller than my wife. So maybe she just had bedhead and that's why she was 2 inches taller, but you know, we'll never know what this guy was thinking. So Michael reaches out to Jack Dunn, which remember was Patrick's Boylan's cousin. Right. Yes. So he reaches out to Jack, and Jack told Michael that he needed to go see what was known as a fairy doctor. So that's what they did. We're gonna go with some sort of blue. So yeah, that's what I decided. Okay, so Michael, so he went to see this fairy doctor, and the fairy's doctor name was Gainey, but we're just gonna call him the fairy doctor because that's way cooler, right? Right. So the fairy doctor was like, yeah, dude, she's super sick. I don't know what you got. She's obviously possessed by a fairy. Fairy doctor was like, yeah, dude, she's super sick. If you don't do something soon, she's not gonna be around too much longer. So the fairy doctor gives him some herbs and tells him to mix it with what's called new milk. And I guess that's right after a cow gives birth. The first milk that's produced is called new milk, which totally makes sense, but I did not know that. So he goes back home and he mixes it with the new milk, and he tells his wife, listen, you need to drink this. You are obviously possessed by a fairy. She was like, no, bro, I'm not. But anyways, so 3 of Bridget's cousins were also there, and they decided to hold her down and force it down her throat to make her drink it. Right now, okay. Michael is completely convinced that his wife is, in fact, you know, not his wife and is, in fact, a fairy. So he is, while he's forcing this herb mixture down her throat, he's saying things like, "Take it, you witch, or I will kill you." Conflicting. I thought he thought she was a fairy, but that's what he said. So, and then it gets a little bit worse, a lot bit worse. So these 3 witch family members, cousins, but whatevs. So they start shaking her up, and apparently they threw urine on her. I don't know if they directly or if they did it in a bucket and then, but anyways, that's what these fine gentlemen decided to do. So good old Michael started saying things like, "Bridget Clearly, or Bridget Boylan, are you the wife of Michael Clearly?" Yeah, just, you know, not being nice. Not at all being nice. So then the guys get a wonderful idea, and we're like, "Hey, fairies don't like fire," which, you know, odd, because I thought that nobody really likes fire, right? Yeah, well, anyways, they bring her over to the fireplace and start leaning her over the fire to essentially burn out the fairy, right? So they thought that this worked, and Bridget, obviously in a lot of pain and all of that, she went, after everybody left, I guess she went upstairs, went to bed, or not upstairs, sorry. She went to bed and, you know, tried to relax from all of this hoopla that just went on, right? So the next morning, Michael calls out the priest to come down and kind of like, you know, get rid of any of the other, if there was any other evil spirits in the house. So he does that. So Friday, March 15th, 1895, after 11 days, Bridget finally wakes up. Well, she finally has enough strength to get up out of bed and put on her nice clothes and go scroll the town. You know, just go do the stuff that she normally used to do. And I guess the day went okay. And later that day in the evening, her family, this is not blending, her family came over for some tea. And they are hanging out. Can you see that? So they're hanging out, having some tea, and then Bridget was like, "You know what? I want some milk. I just want a glass of milk. That's it. Just want a glass of milk." Well, good old Michael, being the great husband that he is, completely flips out and was like, "No, only fairies like milk. Obviously, you're still a fairy. You still are possessed by this evil spirit, yada yada." So he flips out and tells her, "Listen, if you do not eat these 3 pieces of bread with jam on it, it's not going to get good for you. It's not going to go well." So annoyed, she goes, or she says, "You know, the only reason that you think that I'm a fairy is because your mom used to go with the fairies." She finally was like, "Listen, my guy, I had a cold. I was sick. That's it. You blew things way out of proportion." At least that's what I would have said. Like, listen. But anyways, so she eats the 2 pieces of bread, and on the 3rd one, she starts struggling and hesitating and annoyed. And Michael was like, no, you, I almost did nay. So Michael continues to be a grade A dick and proceeds to force it down her throat. He ripped off all of her clothes except for her chesme, which is a olden day little dress, like a nightgown that they used to wear underneath their dresses, right? Okay, cool. So, he only leaves her in that. And then, asshole grabs a hot pole. So I'm assuming like something like to clean out the fireplace or something of that sort. He grabs it from the fireplace and puts it next to her head, next to her face, shoves her face down on the ground and is screaming at her, "You're a witch. Again, you took my wife. You're not Bridget Clearly. Are you my wife?" You know, the whole 9 yards. So then, she's crying in pain because, ow, fire stick next to your face. Like one would do. Ow, fire. So, anyways. So then he decides to get a paraffin wax container type situation, and sorry, my dog's snoring. So he pours the wax all over poor Bridget, all in the mix, saying, "You're a witch, you're a fairy," yada yada. So she lights a flame, and mind you, so I was like, wait, wasn't there family members there? Where did the family go? No, they are hiding by a nearby doorway and just watching in, they're afraid of what's going on. So she lights a flame. Then Michael leaves and is gone for about an hour. And I guess the family are still there. They're praying inside. And yeah, so when Michael returns, like I said, about an hour later, she's dead. She died. And Michael goes and threatens one of her cousins. His name was Patrick. And basically he's like, "Listen, if you don't come with me and bury this body, you're next. You're next." So the cousin does it. They go up about 2 miles behind the house into some really swampy, murky area. Builds her a shallow grave. Digs her a shallow grave, and then they walk back down in the house, and Michael tells the rest of the family members, "Look, if you say anything about anything that you just saw here, y'all are all gonna be not having a good time." So they all keep their mouths shut, and the next morning Michael wakes up and he's like, "I need to go talk to the priest." So he meets up with Jack Dunn, and they head to the church. And when they get there, Michael goes over to the podium. So Michael goes up. He's crying next to the podium and, just being all sorts of type of dramatic. So even though Jack wasn't there when all of this happened, so Jack wasn't there, but on the way down to the church, Michael was like, "Hey, listen, when I'm done with this, I'll get in the light, like better lighting. I'm probably going to have to do this in the nighttime, but we're going to work on that because the light contrast any hoodoo woodoo." Okay, so Jack goes up to the priest and he's like, "Listen, I think that I think that he just murdered his wife. At least that's what he's telling me, right? The priest is looking at him like, okay, listen, weirdo. Not really like, well, he's believing him, but not like, it's, you know, like he's kind of like in shock. Like, no way, no way. Kind of like, you know, I would do the same. Like, what? You did what now? No, you didn't. Because she was a fairy? Because you thought she was a fairy? No. So, anyways, so they leave the church, and the following day, the priest calls, or not calls, but you know, gets a hold of the police, and so the priest gets a hold of the police, and the police start questioning family members, friends, all of that stuff around the village, and they are looking for her body. They could not find it, but during this time, Michael's being completely irrational, saying things like, I'm gonna kill myself, and I'm going to, if he doesn't kill himself, then he was going to immigrate to a different area. So, that. So, 2 days after all of that, 8 people were arrested. So March 20th, 1895, they were all, the 8 people that they thought to be involved were all arrested. And this was obviously Michael, Jack Dunn, Patrick Boylan, the dad, Patrick, what was his last name? Kennedy. Patrick Kennedy. Final answer. And then 4 of her cousins, which I wasn't able to find the name. So, yeah, so they were all arrested, and then 2 days after that, they actually found Miss Bridget's body. So, July 5th, 1895, after a 2-day trial, they were all found guilty of murder. And I don't know exactly what happened to the rest of them, but I know that Michael himself served only 11 years in prison. And when he got out, he went to Montreal and, just started up a new life. He got a new job as a laborer, and all in the mix, he was saying things like, my wife is going to come back to me. My real wife is going to come back to me. She is, in fact, not dead. And yeah, she's going to come back to me. She's going to, this is good. She's going to come back to me on a white horse. And all I'm going to have to do is cut the ties that bind her to the animal, and then she will be mine forever. So none of them were psychologically, probably said that wrong, evaluated, of course. Back in that time, that wasn't really, a thing. But in 2006, an article of the Irish journal, Medical of Science, released an article suggesting that maybe he was suffering from something called the Capgras syndrome. And this basically is something that makes you believe that if your loved one or your friend or whatever is basically not who they used to be, replaced by something, so to say. So, and also in this article, it states that, Bridget, she was ambitious. She knew how to read. She was very smart. And a lot of women back in that day that was not your duty. Your duty was to cook, clean, mind the crops. That's it. So she was considered an oddball. So for some people, according to the article, for some people, maybe this led them to believe, and that includes her husband, maybe she just was closer to the so-called fairy realm than the natural realm that we live in. So, yeah. So that is actually it for the story. There's a few things that I left out that I didn't really know if it was like necessary or like important, because I mainly wanted to focus on Bridget and her story. But apparently there was a not a mistress. She was sneaking around on her husband, Michael, and supposedly at one of these occasions, he actually showed up at the house while that they were in the middle of torturing the first time. Let me do this real quick. I'll be right back. Yeah, so, but apparently he didn't want to get involved because he himself had a wife with 2 kids. So he was like, I gotta stay away from that. I don't know what's going on there. But whatever it is, it's none of my business. So, he's a great guy. That's just how I rolls. So, I don't know if you want to know anything about me. If you care to know anything about me. So yeah, I've been watching Bailey, obviously, for, I guess like 3 years now. Completely binged all of them. And then, it was really crappy and I had to wait every Monday for the uploads. I know a lot of you guys can relate to that. So, yeah, and then I started finding other creators. Brittany, what was her name? Brittany, it starts with a V. I cannot pronounce her name. So I found her, and then I found Danielle from UK. And I just, binged all of their stuff too. And I'm actually still working on Brittany's stuff, which I love you, Mama, by the way. You're amazing. Love what you do. Danielle, you too. So yeah, I was just like, I wonder if I could do this. So we'll see. I know there's like nobody that's following me right now. That's a lie. I got one fan. It's my hubby. But, I'm hoping to get up there, and like join this world of YouTube. Yes. All right, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to finish up my face. I will be back. I'm just going to contour a little bit. Then put the powder on, and I'll be back to do my lip. No, I will not be back to do my lips. I will do my lips, and then I'll be back to say bye. All right, I'm in better lighting. So this is how it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you stuck around to the end, mad props. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you stuck around to the end, I really appreciate you. And if somebody has not told you that they love you today, I love you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.